What's going on, everybody? I'm filming in Florida at the moment. It's super hot, which is why I'm inside instead of outside. I spent the summer boondocking by rivers and creeks and lakes, etc., and it was gorgeous. And now that I'm back here, it's kind of disappointing. But anyway, I wanted to talk about just being a good neighbor. You know, when you're camping, it doesn't matter if you're boondocking, you're at a campsite, or wherever you happen to be, you want to be neighborly. And I guess I basically want to answer some questions like, what are the social norms? What's okay, what's not okay, while being a neighbor amongst other campers. Now, the biggest thing is noise. All right, that's, if you want to be the perfect neighbor, just be quiet. That's really what a lot of it comes down to. Don't have your generator running at night, okay? And there's a lot of people that mess this up. They don't have battery banks or whatever their reason is, but the sun goes down, they want to run their air conditioning. So they fire up their generator and it runs all night long. And it just completely disrupts the pristine nature. You know, like, people want to listen to the nature sounds. They want to hear the owls and the critters and, you know, maybe water running, that sort of thing. They want to be one with nature. They don't want to hear your generator. So if your rig is not set up to where you can't run air conditioning or your TV or whatever it is that you're running a generator for at night, you need to upgrade, okay? You need to get a battery bank. You need to get some solar, whatever it is. If you're running a generator at night around other people, you're being rude. That's really what it comes down to. I don't care what your reasons are. Now, if you have an emergency or something, okay, fine. But for the most part, in general, running a generator after 10 p.m., a lot of places it's considered rude after 8 p.m. But in general, after sundown, turn your generator off. And same goes for music, even voices. After dark, bring things down, man. If you're having a party or something, have your party far away from other people so you're not disrupting everybody. If you're camping around other people and you're blasting music at all hours of the night, you're being rude. Drinking heavily and you got people hollering and making a fuss all night long, you're being rude. Another big one is your animals. Do you have dogs? Are they barking all day, all night long? You need to do something about that. Maybe you're used to it. You don't even hear it anymore. Your dog's freaking out over a squirrel, and everybody in a 2-mile radius, and I'm not exaggerating, depending on the landscape and bodies of water, that dog can be heard for miles. Okay? And if it's just losing its shit for hours on end, you're being rude. Simple as that. I don't care if you're used to it. I don't care if the dog's got a reason, an illness. If your dog is barking for hours on end every day, you're being rude. Handle your shit, okay? Whatever that looks like, I don't care. I'm not a dog owner, so I'm not going to try to explain to you how to train your dog, but handle it because you're being rude. Same with children, okay? Now, honestly, I haven't had a lot of problems with children. Usually children, they might fuss a little bit here and there, and that's just kids being kids. But if they're screaming endlessly, reel it in, okay? However you parent your children, okay? But reel it in. If they're screaming and hollering endlessly, you're being rude. Another one, jet skis, motorbikes, small engines of whatever type. That can be it depends on where you are, I think. If you're somewhere where that is expected and understood, then fine. If you're out in the wilderness and it would otherwise be quiet and majestic and everyone else is chilling and you're the only one with a motorcycle and you're doing donuts and everything else right there in the middle of the campground, you're being rude. All right, chill out. When in Rome, when it comes to stuff like that. But again, use your best judgment, because you might be somewhere where that's where everybody goes to ride their motorcycles and go mudding and jet ski and all that stuff. And if that's the case, have at it, have fun. And if somebody complains, then I would say they're being rude, because they came to a place where it's understood that that's kind of activity happening, and they want everybody there to bow to their needs, and that doesn't work either. In that case, you're being rude if you're complaining. Don't be a Karen. Okay, so that was a bunch of examples basically centered around noise. Okay, so let's get into the other stuff. Don't just walk up into other people's campsites, even if it's just somebody with a van. Okay, maybe they don't have a campsite, they don't got chairs and a campfire and everything else, but they got their van there and they're enjoying the view and they got their doors open. Maybe they're making a little dinner or whatever. Don't just come walk up on them and be, hey, how's it going? They're probably there to get away from everybody, okay? They might not want to socialize. They probably want to be left the hell alone. And they don't want to feel like they got to keep all their doors and stuff closed because some weirdo is going to walk up, okay? Especially females, okay? If there's a female out there, just because she's female and exists does not give you an invite to come say hello and greet them and all that. Now, if they're sitting out, they got their lawn chairs out and they're sitting by the fire and they see you and they wave, say hello or whatever, smile. Okay, that's kind of an invite. So use your best judgment. And there's a helicopter flying over my head. Sorry, I'm close to a Coast Guard station. So there's a lot of air traffic here, military, Coast Guard, and passenger aircraft. So I got to put up with that. But what I was saying was, don't invite yourself into someone's camp, whatever that might look like. If it could just be a Volkswagen, or it could be, a whole setup, with multiple RVs and groups of people, whatever. If you're walking around and they wave and say hello and invite you over, cool. But don't assume you're welcome. A lot of people out there, especially boondocking, they're out there to get away from everything and everybody, okay? Myself included. I don't want... If you recognize my RV somewhere, don't come walking up on me because you recognize me or my RV or some shit, okay? I'm out there to get away too. Now, maybe it's just me because, I don't know, I got the hair and the look, I suppose, but I have a lot of people offering me substances and alcohol, and I don't know, it doesn't upset me because I get it. People are just trying to bond. They're trying to invite you to a friendly conversation or whatever, and a lot of people do that with a drink, They're going to invite you over for a drink, a smoke, whatever it is, and I get that. But I guess what I'm saying is, don't assume everybody drinks. Don't assume people smoke or whatever, even if they look like me, because I don't drink or smoke. Or at least have an alternative plan, if you ask somebody if they want to have a drink and they say no, well, they still might be interested in hanging out with you and having a sit, maybe eat some food or whatever. But if they say no, and you're like, okay, this guy's not cool, whatever, I'm going to go back and do my thing and I'll let them do their thing. Well, you might have just missed an opportunity to have a friend out there because you assumed that their no was because they don't want to hang out with you, and their no is really just because they don't drink or whatever it is that you're offering. So have a backup plan. If your opening is you want to come have a drink and they say no, like, oh, well, you want to hang out otherwise, you want to chill out, shoot the shit, whatever, don't just dismiss that person because they don't want to drink. So something I haven't personally encountered a whole lot, but I hear a lot of complaints about are people's lights. Like, somebody will have this extravagant RV and they'll have 100 LED lights and spotlights and whatever, and it's like a whole freaking thing. If you got that, cool, but after hours, whatever the generator cutoff time is, and I would say if there's no official time, then no later than 10 p.m., turn all that shit off, man. People are trying to enjoy the nature. They want to see the stars, the fireflies, the moonlight. They don't want to see your techno rave looking extravaganza over there, Even if it's pointed a different direction from them, that still ambient light is going to scatter everywhere, okay? So just turn it off. At 10 p.m., you need to, that's my personal routine. At 10 p.m., I start turning off lights. I start turning off generators. If I'm playing music or have a TV on or something, I turn the volume down. Basically, nobody should hear anything outside of your rig. If you're camping in a tent or something, doesn't matter. They should not hear you, okay? Being in a tent does not excuse you from having a bunch of lights and stuff going on. Now, if you got a little light in your tent, and your tent kind of glows on the outside, that's fine. No one's going to complain about that. But we're talking about like the big old spotlights and things that are lighting up an entire campsite when nobody's out there anymore, Now, if you want to hang out outside after 10, have a campfire, have some little lights, but you don't need the big giant stuff, okay? That's unnecessary, and it's rude. So let's talk about smells, okay? And most of the time that is in the form of exhaust, but it can also include campfires. If you are upwind from people and you're running a generator that's putting out fumes, or even just your car engine, if you're one of these people that idles your car for hours, and I have a hard time understanding people that do this, camping or otherwise. Even in the neighborhood, some people will just have a car in their driveway idling for a half hour. Why? I don't know. I really don't. Maybe if it's somewhere cold, okay, you're trying to heat the engine up and stuff. Okay, I get that. I'm in Florida right now and people do this almost every day. It makes no sense to me. Anyway, if your engine is running, you're putting out exhaust, and that exhaust can be smelled and heard from other people around you, and it's rude. Same with generators. I get it. You need to run your generator. And let me back up. If you're running your car's engine to charge things, unlike a generator, that engine is not really designed for that. Okay, if you're just idling for long periods of time, the motor oil is not mixing properly within the engine, and it's fine for a few minutes, but if you don't put some RPMs on that engine and actually run it, it's not going to spread the oil properly, and it's going to wear your engine much faster than it otherwise would. Also, it's just not as efficient electrically. If you have devices that you need to charge, it's much better to get a generator, even if it's a little one. Get you one of them little Honda 2000 watters or whatever. Harbor Freight puts out the Predator series. Those are great. A lot of them are very quiet, actually. So get one of those. I know it's extra space if you're just, in an SUV or a van. It's more stuff in your vehicle, but it's better to do that than to run your vehicle's engine. You're going to wear out your engine. Your charging is not going to be as efficient. It's just better all around to get a generator. But back on the topic of being the perfect neighbor, just be mindful of when and where you're running that thing. Now, campfires. If you're putting unusual stuff in your campfire and you're upwind, okay, and the big one is plastic. I actually keep in my rig 2 trash bags, one for burnable stuff and one for everything else. Plastic stuff, that's really what it comes down to, is separating your plastic from everything else. Or wet stuff. If you got a bunch of wet trash, then I put that in the non-burnable, because putting a bunch of wet paper towels or whatever in your campfire, it's gonna make your campfire worse. Yeah, don't burn a bunch of plastic, basically, is what it comes down to. If you're burning plastic, you're just going to piss off everybody around you. What happens to me, no matter what I'm burning, and this is my my door right here, the smoke always comes right in the door. It doesn't matter what direction the wind was blowing. The smoke from a campfire always comes directly into the RV and fills the place up with whatever I'm burning. If some plastic gets in there, guess what? My whole RV is going to smell like plastic. I'm going to get a headache. I'm going to be coughing and gagging and dying. And likewise, don't do that to other people. I've been out in the river swimming and got subjected to people's plastic because the wind carries that stuff. And don't assume because you don't see the smoke going in someone's direction that they're not getting hit by that. I'll tell you straight up, I will put canned food cans in my campfire, but I will retrieve those before I leave. And I do that to burn all of the residual food that's in there, because that attracts bugs, and I don't want bugs in my RV or anywhere around my campsite. So I'll burn those, and then I'll take the charred up can, I'll put it in a plastic bag, and I'll put that bag into my trash, and it comes with me when I leave the campground. And that's another fantastic topic, is trash. I have camped countless locations, and sadly it is very rare that I don't have to clean up after people once I arrive. Almost everywhere I go, I get to a campsite and I have to clean it before I can even start unpacking and setting up, because there's going to be trash. It could just be bits of paper, it could be used dirty diapers. Okay, I've seen it all, and it's foul. Now, a lot of times people will take all their trash and they'll put it in the fire pit and they'll leave it there for whoever else to deal with. And that'll include 10,000 plastic bottles and everything else you can imagine. So now it's my problem. Don't do that. Okay? That's rude. It's not just rude to the next person that's going to be there. And I'm not talking just campgrounds. I'm talking like boondocking sites, anywhere. You know, there'll be a little fire ring made out of stones. Maybe you made it, and that doesn't mean you can just take all your trash and leave it there. Your mommy's not going to come show up and clean that up after you. Okay? And what's going to happen is there's going to be a storm or some wind gust, and it's going to spread that shit all over the campground or into the rivers and the streams. And now it's a freaking eco disaster because you're too lazy to put that shit in a trash bag and take it back with you. Are you an adult or are you 5 years old? You tell me. Don't be rude. And honestly, any list like this could be summed up with one rule. Don't be a dick. Okay? I've lived by that one rule my whole life, and that pretty much keeps me out of all trouble. Just don't be a dick, and everything's going to be fine, no matter where you are or what you're doing. I guess that's about all I got right now. If you got more suggestions, please leave a comment and, let's discuss it. If you don't agree with something I said, leave a comment. Let's discuss it. But I would love to hear your ideas, and or if you can elaborate on something I've said already, put that down there and other people can see that and get inspired. Because we are a community, even if we're a bunch of reclusive, antisocial types, we are still a community, and we should treat each other like one and respect each other. So if you like this content, I've got a boatload of content. I just filmed for an entire summer. A lot of vlogging type videos, a lot of do-it-yourself type videos are coming up. So subscribe and leave a comment like I said. But stick around because I'm going to have a ton of stuff for you coming very soon.